after this slide is it playing? That's my problem. I don't know if it's playing or not. It's not? Okay, we're just going slide by slide. Okay, well, that's a picture of a photographer I found in San Francisco. And that's when I was talking about, like, the photographers are mirrors too, to look yourself and let go of all this control of your self-image and stuff. So on the next slide, it says, okay, photography brings abundance. That's other thing I have found. I mean, abundance, yes, money, yes, reaching out to more clients and business and portfolio, but also the abundance of like seeing yourself being great, being you, shining, that makes you feel better. It's a way to help with I got the word here, scarcity mindset, that we're always lacking something. I think photography can connect us what we are and how great we can be. On the next slide. Yeah, also all that self-knowledge I was talking about is abundance, which is great. And then, on the next slide, I want to talk about my work more deeply. Okay. So what I do on my personal work, I love just shooting reality. Like when I shoot by myself, I don't like to post people or anything, just be invisible and shoot reality. Reality is constantly giving us so much. It's amazing. But then when I work with people, I love working in a non-judgmental way. I'm not gonna judge you. I don't have enough information about you. I'm not a judge. So I try to create this safe space I was talking about. And also the abundance I was talking about on the previous one, before going to this one, sorry. Yeah, I mean, the abundance, not only, for example, for a performance, to see how great they look, how great they did, but also to help them build a career, a portfolio, When you perform on a show, the day after, like, probably some people will remember, but with pictures, you have evidence that happened and you did great. And then I want to talk about a personal project called Faces. This is where I also am creating a safe space for people. Is the previous one? Yeah, there you go. So Faces is a photo experiment where I have people, I guide them through, it's like a meditation or like a process. They start touching their faces because I found that that's where we have more of our self-identity in our face. So let's go to let off control of that, and they let me capture that. I call it the geography of your face, all the little parts that you never touch or you always use just to look good. On the previous one, it was one show that I shot recently with more than 50, 60 artists. It was called Not Another Conspiracy. It was great, and that's what I love to do. And that's why I want to create my own company called Trust in Visionaries. It was on the previous slide. Probably can't remember it. Yeah, to be an important part of my community, to be an ally to others' projects. I want to have my own projects. I want to release my own photo book, but I also want to be part of other people's projects. Become an ally from my corner with the camera and serve as a mirror. And yeah, well, thank you very much for listening. You'll get my contact information at the end of this slide. If you want to be part of the Faces project or just like work with me or anything, just please follow me. I'll follow you back. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Artist is such a broad term that can encompass so many different disciplines, but this is exactly what I would identify myself as. Whether it's songs that I've composed in my music theory 3 class, or hip-hop R&B tracks I've written from scratch for my album, or even referencing experiments I've conducted in through which I combined my disciplines in both my undergraduate majors of music and biochemistry. My beginnings were rooted in what I was a confident 10-year-old, performing a solo in a play on stage. I had been casted in, after which many bright-eyed parents were asking my parents about my music background, which at the time was non-existent outside a few years of piano practice. After that life-changing night in elementary school, my underlying dream to be a hip-hop artist with flashy music videos such that my songs would one day play on the radio came to fruition, just not in the ways I would anticipate. I would partake in a relatively long and drawn-out journey, but I wouldn't change it for a thing. Although my interest was in hip-hop and R&B, before I even knew it, I would actually have the opportunity to learn the art of training classically and opera. At the time, my understanding and appreciation for opera was limited. But now I can say that I'm truly grateful. Having classical instruction allowed me to learn the basics of vocal performance that I could apply to learn pieces in opera, jazz, country, and my most favorite, hip hop and R&B, in multiple different languages, including French, Spanish, German, Italian, and Russian. Although my classical training did require Although my classical training did require some restructuring to fit the ideal hip-hop R&B sound and didn't happen immediately, it did come full circle eventually, over a decade later, when I began to explore my options as a singer-songwriter under the alias Huntsgirl, while I was pursuing my master's in medical physiology. This was truly an empowering moment in my music career as an artist, because I finally understood how the pieces came together. I was finally able to not just sing, but create music in a genre that I had loved for a long time. The most relevancy I held within these words. There's a lot of hurt. Cry with me, cry with me. Joy I'm feeling in great heights. I began writing my unreleased album, in which I have incorporated many of the vocal techniques and themes that I acquired over the years through my classical, jazz, and hip-hop training. My album attempted to convey emotions through my written lyrics and the tones of the notes that I selected as well. And that is the end of my presentation, and the last slide are my socials. So thank you so much.
In this time of tragedy, my heart breaks. In this time of tragedy, my heart burns so angrily. Lord, I beg and pray and plead that you give me the eyes to see. Good evening. I am Kay Ellie Mae, and my superpower is helping people and organizations to explore, embrace, and execute their visions of excellence. The tools of my trade are critical thinking, data collection and analysis, music, literature, and crafts. The subject matter of my work is politics, public policy, education, identity, and trauma, disaster, and distress. For me, research and art are inextricable. each providing frameworks that challenge, inform, and extend the other. My dissertation on the politics of education provided the foundational concepts for my first novel, in which 3 educators from Houston and Galveston worked together to bring safety and lasting educational change to their students in the face of Hurricane Ike. At the request of a visionary professor wanting to demonstrate the relevance of the political science classroom to students' real lives, I developed an e-textbook edition, and students reported being exceptionally well prepared for Hurricane Harvey and their recovery in its aftermath. I expanded the fictional Carter House universe with Harold, in which a master of guitar and piano chooses life over death, even though he has lost the use of his hands. Presenting my philosophy of education and mentorship, Harold is ripe for stage production. Through the LSF Institute, I invite audiences into the Carter House universe with interactive music, literature, and visual arts integrated activities, and create whatever tools are necessary to facilitate their engagement, like co-writing, co-producing, and singing 847, Time for Change.
Classified good girl, still I can't breathe. Every day I feel I'm the next I can't sleep. It's about to cause me real anxiety. This whole world is lost if you don't see. I got a soul, yes, I got a soul, I'm human too. Even though I don't look like you, we're still the same. We're still the same.
Now I'd like to ask for your participation in my current project. Think about the hero of the last trauma or disaster you experienced. What was their superpower? Raise your hand if you were the hero. Thank you. Now raise your hand if a friend or family member was the hero. Fantastic, thank you. Okay, who thought about a stranger? Awesome. Most people here thought about a friend or family member. Keep your answers in mind, and we'll circle back to this place. Disasters distort our memories, our histories, and our understandings of each other and our possibilities. We posit that this estranged fruit can be eradicated by inclusive community rituals that serve as bridges, transporting experience, memory, fears, and hopes from crisis to recovery. This project develops a community of heroes narrative and features the Motis Evaluation Framework, a documentation ritual that helps organizations to connect post-disaster performance and evaluation to pre-disaster goals and expectations. An illustrated modern mythology and photo-illustrated comic book. You can pick up the Breba First Look Scroll edition of this work tonight. And workshops like our A Song of Freedom community songwriting event that was held in Galveston.
Free, right? Like, let's say you go into a store and everything is free. How does it make you feel? Yes. It makes you feel loved, yes. Yes.
It makes you, I know, it makes you feel proud of your country.
Yeah.
Who are you when the storms come? How can you show up for yourself? And how are we together? We must know each other, respect each other, and make space for our full selves, work that takes root in the calm to be harvested in the crisis. So let's work together to keep track of the heroes in your life and their superpowers so that you can recreate your shared visions of excellence in the aftermath of life's storms. Thank you.
Hello. I'm ready. Thank you, everybody. Yes, my name is Christina McCall. After graduating college with a degree in art, I'll be honest, I felt pretty lost. Thrown into adulthood, I was searching for answers, and mostly I was looking for a peace of mind. I started to read into Buddhism, and the idea of one extreme can't live without the other really stuck with me. If you did not experience sadness, you would not know what joy is, and without pain, you would not have pleasure. These polar opposites all work together for the greater good. Once I heard this, I felt at peace. This new type of thinking started a journey with drawing the circles. I wanted to start over from the beginning, to be an excellent draftsman. I was set on creating one piece with strict straight lines next to one that only contains curves. I was creating them alongside one another, playing with the extremes, and questioning how to create line. I was fascinated to ask such simple questions and to bring it back to the basics. I exhausted all ideas, created about 20 pieces before I allowed myself to move on to the next series, and the next medium, apologies, a series of circles utilizing a printmaking technique I created by stretching fabric over round wooden panels. I created these as part of a residency that gave me time to explore this type of thinking further than ever before. It is important for me as an artist to not make work that looks all the same. I have to explore the variety and push what I can do as much as possible. This then evolved to painting, where I really started my research and discovery of materials. This took years of looking and searching. I found this very special Japanese wheat paper tape. I discovered clear gesso and this very specific vinyl sticky paper that gives me the smooth edges that I'm desiring. I then started to question the accessibility of my work. Who is it for and who can afford these one-of-a-kind works? So the next series was a design series utilizing digital techniques. I mostly wanted to see what I could do with the medium and did several art markets with these materials and products. Part of the journey is applying to things yearly. Giving myself deadlines is very important to me. Goals and deadlines drive and motivate me, and here are a few installation shots from various shows over the years and a mural that I did for an office at one point. At last, after 5 years, I broke free from the circles. Things in my life had taught me to let go. I started to allow myself to be influenced by my surroundings and to stop and smell the flowers, so to speak, to just observe. You will see the influence from my reference images on the right and how they directly relate to the paintings. I'm constantly trying to find new patterns and juxtapose them next to something else. Layering and generating patterns, creating rules only for me to break them the next day is all part of my process. I'm making my own worlds with the hope that the viewer will become fixated on them and maybe ask, how the heck did she do that, you know? I'm concerned, I'll wait, sorry. Give you time. I am concerned about waste. What is removed from one piece is used in another. Like traces of a civilization leaving evidence of its existence. I keep everything, I cherish everything. Finding new definitions for my materials drives many of my decisions. Along with drawing and painting, I play with photography as well, and I find photography to be my chance to work with the ready-made world, as if to break free from the worlds that I'm creating and painting. With a similar type of questioning I apply to objects. How can I give a new definition to items I surround myself with every day? This series, titled From the Eye to the Brain, is focused on homonyms, words that sound the same but vary in meaning. I love entertaining, and making this series made me laugh because, yes, I felt extremely silly stabbing a steak with a steak, but hey, it's for art. This next series, titled From the Eye to the Brain, is this next series, I'm getting nervous, it's called Appreciating Your Hands, which is another Buddhist principle. It's an observation of the everyday, finding the lines our bodies create and obsessively cataloging them along the way. Going on many long walks and just purely observing brought me so much joy. And professionally, I have photographed hundreds, if not thousands, of things from rare historical furniture to capturing the various sets for the opera. And one of my photographs actually had been published in the New York Times, and that made my mom very, very proud. My current goal is to freelance more along my art practice, and now let's raise your glass for a toast to me. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Caroline Z. Marcos, and I believe the artist's task is to show the world in a new perspective that will broaden your interpretation of reality. I make mixed media paintings with acrylic paint, collage, oil stick, found objects, cold wax, and sometimes encaustic, which is an ancient painting process using beeswax and dating back to the Fayum portraits in the 1st century. My paintings have many layers and textures. I call them soulscapes. They're inspired by nature and are emotional or internal heart landscapes, or psychological topographies. I approach my art practice as a way to understand the world, a way to creatively filter and reconfigure it. It's the unknown that I'm drawn to. I'm infinitely drawn to the possibility of bringing mystery into the light through the art-making process. During my BA degree in studio art from UC Santa Cruz, I developed my skills in multiple mediums and became introduced to mixed media and beeswax. When I completed my master's degree in marriage and family therapy and art therapy, my work became informed by the healing power of art. I facilitated others' use of art as a language to sort out personal wounds and narratives. I started witnessing and honoring the healing process of art in other people's psychotherapy sessions. And it was then that, while watching my clients, that I started to experience a tinge of jealousy as they were working on their work of arts, and that jealousy tugging at my heart to focus on my own art practice. So I started honoring the art-making process as a language of personal expression for myself. Painting became my heart's voice. I have an internal sense of peace and focus during the process of creating that I don't often experience at any other time. I enter flow or the zone, and everything is aligned, mind, body, and soul. All sense of time disappears. Initially, my work included text as a way of making sense or meaning, and they have since evolved to be less literal and less figurative, but have a more surreal quality to them. I approach my studio practice with curiosity, discovery, and a beginner's mind. I'm working to stay in touch with that playful, in-the-moment, mindful spirit. I collect various materials to use for collage, such as paper, chocolate wrappers, packing material, dried leaves, and flowers. Anything's game, really. I play, fully immersed in the moment. I play in the studio with the various materials, problem solve whatever feelings and current life issues are presenting themselves at hand. I ask myself, what is my soul longing to set free? The resolve is the painting, a psychological topography moving from despair to hope, darkness to light. Using mixed media allows for texture and historical, temporal, or narrative layered characteristic to the paintings. The layering process acts as a metaphor for the depths of the unconscious. I'm interested in the continuous pattern that runs consistently in the shapes and forms through nature, the macrocosms and the microcosms of nature, the folds of mushrooms, the ecosystems in the ocean. As we are a part of nature, one experiences a sense of purpose and belonging in the grand scheme of nature's design and patterns. There's a delicate balance of natural beauty between chaos and order, life and death, light and darkness. This is the struggle or problem solving that occurs in these paintings, and I'm moving to resolve. The art-making process allows me to step into the healing flow of the mind as a response to natural beauty. My next focus of work in my new body of work, I'm choosing to challenge myself to work more abstractly and push the idea of the internal landscape or soulscape in the abstract expression. I'm doing this by collecting inspirational images of colorful tree bark. I will use them as a springboard to explore the internal terrain, that mystery of the unknown, to find a new discovery and resolve. It is my hope to engage others in that mystery as well, through the viewing, interaction, and collecting of my work. When one owns a piece of artwork in their home or office, it becomes a conversation piece for themselves and for engagement with their guests. At present, a lot of these works have been purchased, and I'm developing a commissioned painting for a private estate. One of my goals for the next year is to find commercial gallery representation. So thank you so much for your time. You can find me on Instagram and on my own website, CarolineZM and carolinez.com.
All right, hi everybody. My name is Celia Butler, and I am a multidisciplinary artist utilizing materials and techniques from fine art, craft, and culinary disciplines. While in graduate school in 2009, I became interested in the bow as a symbol of femininity. I made these bows out of sugar and ribbon candy, which is a cooked sugar mixture that is repeatedly pulled by hand until it becomes glossy. Candy is made out of cheap, refined sugar, and it's ephemeral, meaning it doesn't last. I use candy and treats to represent childlike associations with sugar as innocence, reward, and celebration, and the contrasting adult associations of bad habit, guilt, and candy's sexual nature of sucking and biting. I'm interested in the idealized female, which exists at the convergence of these two opposites, caught between childhood and adulthood. I'm inspired by advertisements, fairy tales, and their maidens, food-based references for the feminine, and Fragonard's painting The Swing, which is in the top middle is Fragonard's painting The Swing. There we go. Okay. My thesis showpiece in 2011 called Sugar Gazing is a really seminal work for me. Imagery and symbolism from this piece has carried through to the work I'm making today. So these are just details from the installation, and the bucket on the right has been encrusted with sugar crystals. I made several iterations of this installation, getting to change it a bit each time. This one is in Wassaic, New York, when I was at Artist in Residence at the Wassaic Project. And here you can see I started incorporating the sugar bow directly onto the bucket. This sugar bucket was at the Houston Center for Contemporary Craft in 2016. The show was called Best If Used By, curated by Sarah Darrow. It was the first time that I got to have work in a show that was centered around food, and the piece was up long enough to really showcase the ephemeral nature of the sugar. This is just another example of the work being allowed to do what it's supposed to do, which is to disappear. Not all of my work is made out of food, but as you can see, it maintains certain visual elements. Works on paper are also a way for me to explore new ideas, and works I would like to eventually make three-dimensional. This piece is called Treat. It's from a series of work called Candy Apples. It's made out of plaster, spackle, acrylic, and hair. My creative practice is not limited by materials or processes. For each piece, the materials are chosen to support the concept, and I often find myself having to research and learn a new skill in order to fully realize the work. These are mixed media paintings, and recently my work has had recurring elements of baked goods, apples, and snake-like blonde hair. And the piece on the right is going to be at Lawndale for the big show that's coming up in June. These two pieces are what I call fake cakes. They abstractly reference little cakes, but there's nothing edible about them. There's something a little bit off about them. They're kind of oozing and a little bit gross. These two are about 5 to 6 inches tall each. And this is another example of material exploration. I wanted a cake to look like it had a skin, so I poured large sheets of silicone and then stretched those sheets around forms that I had sculpted out of foam. This piece is called Spumoni Prize. It's about 18 inches tall, and I was thinking about rewards and trophies when I came up with this idea. It's from this year, earlier this year. And again, reoccurring elements of the apple and hair. And this is called Eurobos. It's about 14 inches tall. And this cake pretty much directly references that earlier sugar gazing piece. I'm using the exact same rope that it's from the hanging sugar bucket and the snake-like blonde hair as well. Also from completed earlier this year. All right, so I have work in Lawndale's Big Show, which I mentioned earlier, that opens Thursday, June 1st. And then I also have 5 sculptures at Collar Works in Troy, New York, in a show called Eat Me, and that opens on June 2nd. I'm interested in opportunities to show at institutions that promote experimental work and are willing to have a conversation about food and ephemeral art. So thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Vernon Caldera. I'm here because during the pandemic, I taught myself how to paint. Before that, I made live sculptures out of my terrariums, and long before that, I was in my first art exhibition at the Houston Public Library after winning a citywide drawing contest in the 8th grade. For my day job, I founded Left Brain, Right Brain Design in 2007, focusing on graphic and interior design. I then launched Keep Houston Rich, a website about Houston's diversity, and the design fair at Lawndale Art Center. Recently, I was part of the award-winning team for a restaurant at the Ion. In 2010, I began making terrariums as art. I view each terrarium as its own world where the plants are its citizens. They have been featured on the Deborah Duncan Show, in national magazines, the cover of 002 Houston, at the Beholden Store, and galleries throughout the city. Fast forward to the start of the pandemic. After binging Portrait Artist of the Year, I learned how to paint by watching YouTube videos. The painting on the left is of my husband giving me my first haircut during COVID. The work on the right is one of my first assignments at GLACEL, the art school at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. In 2021, Malawi Gardeners was given an honorable mention at GLACEL's annual student show, my first year. The scene comes from a trip I took in 2018 to Malawi, where I designed a xeriscaping garden for a maternal health clinic. I remember taking the picture and thinking I would like to paint it someday. Also in 2021, Las Palmas was selected for the Visual Art Alliance's 37th annual juried exhibition. The juror, Harry Cooper, is a senior curator at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., and praised the composition style and use of color in this painting. The following year, in 2022, another one of my paintings, Shopping at the Manil, was selected for the VAA's 38th juried exhibition. This time, the juror was Ellison de Lima Green, a curator of modern and contemporary art at the Museum of Fine Arts, Houston. Then this month, I received news that Yosemite Sunbathers on the left was selected as the finalist in Acrylic Works' annual list of best paintings. The issue will come out in September of this year. The painting on the right was selected for an exhibition at the Kinder Morgan headquarters in downtown Houston. I'm originally from Nicaragua, and I'm influenced by my time spent in Mexico City and Houston. I'm drawn to the strong use of color and figurative storytelling of Latin American art. I combine these elements with a bit of camp and sci-fi to create my own style of magical realism. I often use plants in my work, giving them anthropomorphic qualities. In the painting on the left, El Hombre Mariposa, I imagine what it would be like to float inside one of my terrariums. In the painting on the right, I use electric tones for the plants and the burro planter to add drama. My subject matter often comes from photographs I take exploring Houston or while traveling. Here we have Papa Merlin on the left, who is often spotted walking up and down Montrose. Below him, the presidential limo in Mexico City, and on the right, my husband looking at two oceans meet at the southernmost point in Africa. I like to make collages in order to explore compositions for my paintings. In this series, I explore fairy tales, combining my own photographs with storybook drawings, art paper, playing cards, and vintage posters. From these collages, I sometimes make paintings such as the one on the bottom right. In Sueños de Andalucía, on the left, I tell the story of coming out to myself back in college during a trip to Spain. The out-proud gay man represented by the matador looks back at a younger version of himself. The painting on the right is of a statue at the Museum of Fine Arts depicting a fallen angel. This spring, I finished a trilogy about San Sebastián. The paintings combine images from my grandmother's house in Diriamba, Nicaragua, with the town's patron saint, San Sebastián, to highlight the role the Catholic Church plays in creating and sustaining homophobia, a common narrative I explore in my work. So this is my QR code to follow me on Instagram. I want to thank everyone who came out, everybody who's online, and I ask you to follow me on Instagram, where you can find out more about upcoming exhibitions, but most importantly, buy my work.
Hi, y'all. My name is Jessica Elaine Ellison, and I am a dramaturg and theater artist. So you might be thinking, what is dramaturgy? As a dramaturg, I work with playwrights and theater organizations to help people at all levels of the theater, from producers to audience members, understand the world of a play. Sometimes I'm working with a playwright to devise a new piece, and other times I'm working with directors on a pre-existing play to curate materials that provide more context. So often dramaturgy goes unnoticed. In this photo from the acting company's Romeo and Juliet, the director for this play asked me if the projected graffiti on the walls would make sense. This was a modern retelling that incorporated street dance, so basically my job was to say, yes, it makes sense. My theater journey started with acting, production design, and set construction in high school. And acting for me was very therapeutic and was a way for me to explore my gender queerness. In college, I mainly studied anthropology, and my focuses were in linguistics, race and cultural studies, and also phenomenology, basically seeking to understand how the world is interpreted through human consciousness and language. These are photos from a performance art piece that myself and classmates created. We infiltrated a college research symposium with what we called sonic insurgency. The trash can was an instrument. My junior year of college, my mentor recommended that I look into dramaturgy as a specialization, and this was the moment when everything clicked for me. My first production as a dramaturg was Sense and Sensibility, and the director for this borrowed from the Living Theater troupe and used people as objects like chairs. My senior year, right before COVID, I had the opportunity to study the archives of playwright Audrey Kennedy. And while I never got the chance to finish curating this exhibit because of COVID, this solidified my interest in dramaturgy, and her archive showed the decades-long process to creating one of her seminal works, Funny House of a Negro, which is pictured here. After I graduated, I went to grad school and ended up in Houston. It was here that I got to study the work of my inspirations like Donia R. Love, Katori Hall, Brandon Jacobs Jenkins, and Susan Laurie Parks. I also got to work as a dramaturg on my first professional performance, which was Sweat at the Alley Theater. So my practice is very community-based, and in grad school, I also created a rehearsal room practice that combined ideas of anthropological theory and performance studies. My practice focused on the idea of play, exploring an unfiltered play as a way to build community and trust amongst adults. After grad school, I freelanced, and since then, I've really had a roller coaster of a time. These are some of the shows that I've been able to work on as a dramaturg. And while freelancing has been so fulfilling, I really am looking forward to the chance to tell my own stories. And so the next project that I'm working on is I'm writing a trilogy of semi-autobiographical short plays that represent Black queer lived experiences, focusing on the past, present, and future, while also incorporating anthropological theory and the weaponization of spaces, belief systems, and institutions. The first play represents the past and focuses on the burden of the idea of home. The story is inspired by my journey to embracing a non-binary identity, rediscovering a blacked out childhood trauma, all while facing the threat of psychiatric institutionalization. The second play represents the present and the weaponization of the idea of family. It's about my quest to reconnect with my older cousin, who is the first openly queer person in my family and who has since cut off all contact with our family. And the third play is on imagined futures and exploring aging as a Black queer person and reconciling with a future that one may have thought was impossible. So I hope to complete writing on this trilogy by the end of 2024, and that's also when I hope to have staged readings of these plays to continue developing them. So yeah, thank you all so much. While I am writing my own stories, I'm also always open to theatrical collaboration and love to connect. You can find my information here. The QR code will take you to my website where you can also see and read an article that I recently wrote for HowlRound Theater Commons on Black queer theater. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. And first off, I'd like to thank Fresh Arts, Mid-America Arts Alliance, and all the facilitators and the artists for all of their encouragement and support throughout this process. It's been a really great experience. My name is Jorge Galvan Flores, and I'm going to be showing you some of my work. One of my main points of inquiry in my work are the external forces that act upon us on people, specifically immigrants as we navigate American enculturation. Topiaries have been a prominent symbol in my work because they are so ubiquitous in Mexico, but also because of the way they are pruned and shaped to be fantastical, idealized versions of themselves. The image on the right is entitled Estrategias Botánicas and brings in another important theme in my work, which is labor and the laborer. My favorite part about this piece is the way the person is completely covered up except for their hands. The image on the left is a sourced photo of some topiaries in the gardens of Versailles. In this work, what I'm doing is I'm bridging the historical origins of the topiary to the streets of Mexico by stitching together images and footage that I've sourced on Google Maps to create hybrid landscapes like in the billboard on top, or for a video installation like below. During the production of this work, I was also excited to adapt a mega surveillance tool such as Google Maps for the needs of my undocumented family, as we spent a lot of time visiting their homes that they had left behind through the computer screen. The impossibility of returning home are also deeply embedded in much of my work, in particular in this piece. In it, you see a monk parakeet fly into a portal, into an image of my flooded childhood home in Veracruz, Mexico. Who knows if the parakeet will find a place to land once it's on the other side. This piece, entitled Despachados, was an accompaniment to the Espectacular billboard. For it, I led a small group through a somatic exercise where we embodied the US American monuments and landscapes depicted on the vintage postcards and wrote out passages that speak to the feeling that the landscapes might encounter as they are being despachado to their place of origins. These postcards were then mailed back to the landscapes and monuments from which they derived. I approach the work that I do as a maximalist, which is why I use so many different medias. I think that my use of color and the decorative form is a reaction to the feelings of not enoughness that is so prevalent in our society. Survival really does mean everything all at once. This is supposed to be like a thirst trap for the American dream. The image on the left is of a painting I did of after the photo shoot I had with the model on the right. And he's not really a Border Patrol agent. These are passport holders, an edition of 18. Printed on them is my image of La Santa Muerte, the Saint of Death, along with some text that reads, Dejarte no quiero, llevarte no puedo. I don't want to leave you, I can't take you with me. More recently, I've been making work from a town called Hidalgo that's on the edge of the Rio Grande in Coahuila, Mexico. Despite the violence and human trafficking there, it's also a beautiful place and a peaceful place. The image on the left is of a makeshift shelter that was most likely built by immigrants as a place to rest, but also to hide from narco gangs and federal agents. One thing that I do on my visits is I buy goat milk from a couple of goat milk herder friends to make caramels. This project is called Malditos Caramelos. For the packaging design, I've been collaborating with an illustrator friend, Arminda Arroyo. The artwork leans heavily into the macabre to mirror the dark and troubling violence throughout the US-Mexican border. And yes, the candies are delicious. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you like what you saw, you can follow me at ephemerama.co or visit my site by the same name to see more of my work. Thank you.
bright up here. Okay. My name is Autumn McElrath, and I am a mixed media collage artist. I've been collaging since I was old enough to hold a pair of scissors. Shout out to my mom, who is watching remotely. I said that. And during the pandemic, I turned to it as a way of processing feelings of isolation and disconnection, and ultimately connecting with an artist community. The piece you saw just previously was called Pandemic Springtime. I use collage to say things that are difficult to verbalize. These pieces express anger and frustration around a breakup and my reassertion of autonomy and sense of self. The one in the center is called Don't Force It. My pandemic collages started out small, but in summer 2021, I started working on something bigger, a rotating interactive piece for an open call. Sadly, the show was canceled before I even submitted. That's the pandemic life for you. But about a year later, I got to revisit the idea and created an installation piece for Hardy and Nance during the 2022 art crawl. So you can see there are two circular panels that rotate independently, and the viewer can create their own combinations. This piece speaks to how we all hide and show different aspects of ourselves in different contexts. I made the central figure like a paper doll version of myself, and my friend Alex started calling it and me Paper Autumn, which I ultimately adopted for my Instagram. Something I love about collage is how many different ways there are to do it. You can combine intact elements into something new, or I can completely deconstruct an image using colors and textures as pieces in a mosaic, as I did here. And the piece in the center is a portrait of my friend's cat. I also enjoy using repeated shapes to imitate a mosaic more directly, or even to move farther toward abstraction, as you can see here. But my work really usually combines these different approaches in the same piece. For instance, here I'm cutting apart a mushroom to make hills in a kind of magenta dreamscape, rearranging and then gluing down the many small pieces. The completed piece you'll see on the next slide. And on the right, there we go, on the left. And then on the right is one where I have a lot more intact elements, sort of showing the range, but usually my work is somewhere in between. A lot of my work focuses on embodiment, and for me, this includes experiences of chronic pain, including migraines on the right. My art lets me take the unseen internal experience of pain and make it visible. I also make work about mental illness, like anxiety and depression, as well as the pressures that we all feel to conform or to fit into the boxes that we have to in order to function in society. Specifically for women, gendered expectations can include things like performance of emotional labor, which is seen, I was getting at with a piece on the left, which is titled Perpetual Emotion Machine. And also the feeling of walking a tightrope between being not enough and being too much. The piece on the right is called The Anger Archive. In fall of 2022, I created this wearable bodice piece out of about 4 years' worth of birth control packaging. I have endometriosis, and I started taking birth control to suppress painful symptoms. It often feels like I'm constantly on my guard, sometimes against my own body and sometimes protecting it. So I titled this piece, Motherfucking Vigilance, which is from a song by the artist Dessa. I've gotten to donate proceeds from pieces to fundraisers in support of humanitarian nonprofits doing work at the US-Mexico border, United for Iran, and the Buffalo Bayou Partnership, and I hope to continue contributing in this way in the future with my art. I also find a lot of joy in my art. I love making these chimeras, combining human and plant or animal features to make new creatures. The bird folk will be coming soon, hopefully in a zine and stickers, and the plant people can now be found at Dirtbag, which is a store in Montrose that sells houseplants. I am so grateful to all my friends and family who've supported me so far in all my weird art explorations. And I am excited to see where things go next, and I invite you to join me. You can follow me on Instagram at paper.autumn, which is where that QR code will take you. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know who I'm looking at. Hi, everyone. My name's Emily Areta, and in my work as a DJ and music producer, I go by MLE or Emily Music. I'm also a sound artist, an educator, cultural historian, and community builder. As a DJ, I think of the dance floor as a site where collective healing can take place through sound and movement. I weave together songs across time and space to create living sound stories. I think a lot about the intersections of genres and communities and how sounds carry histories. I rely heavily on improvisation, call and response, and the idea of descarga or collective release. My sound centers Afro-diasporic music that draws from my Panamanian heritage, Texas upbringing, and sounds that shape future worlds. After college, I completed a Fulbright in Panama, and I was greatly inspired by the wide range of music and mix of Caribbean, Latin, and African cultures. When I returned to the US, I started experimenting with the DJ controller and quickly got hooked. I have a musical background in singing and guitar, so it was fairly easy for me to teach myself. I started performing at friends' art shows and openings and eventually attained a residency at The Flat, a staple for underground music in Houston. I called it Tumbao, and my aim was to highlight Black diasporic music from Latin America and its global connections. That year, I co-founded a collective with 3 friends called Juicebox, a platform for BIPOC, femme, queer, and gender nonconforming DJs, and we received a grant from HAA. We wanted to create more intentional community spaces centered on our experiences and expose audiences to a wide variety of music. When the pandemic hit, we decided to throw our inaugural event virtually. We didn't decide, we had to, featuring a lineup of queer Black DJs and spotlighting queer BIPOC businesses. We also held a 14-hour virtual music festival raising funds for artists during the pandemic. In 2022, I created an interactive installation as a part of the docent exhibition at Project Row Houses, paying homage to my mom and grandmother's use of collage as a form of decor and documentation. I displayed CDs, vinyl, and cassette tapes that audience members could listen to, showing some of my musical influences, and created a video installation. Later that fall, I debuted my first live sound performance at Lawndale Arts Center titled Rhythms and Vibrations after my mom's Panamanian folkloric dance group, which she directed for 10 years, and I danced in since I was a toddler. It contained excerpts from newspaper articles on her, my grandfather, who was an orchestra director in Panama from the 50s on, and my late uncle, who was in the National Symphony and a youth arts educator. I combined this with folkloric and popular Panamanian music, music from my grandfather's orchestra, and live electronic percussion.
Celebrate several independence days for that country during the month of November. Adding to the festivities will be 2 folkloric dance groups, Vibrations and Rhythms of Panama, under the direction of A-Leaf resident McElrath, who is a native Panamanian and has been in the United States since 1983.
Around this time, I was selected to participate in a cumbia showcase for Boiler Room, an international DJ platform featuring local and global acts. I crafted a DJ set that showed the Afro-Indigenous origins of this genre in Colombia and created original remixes and mashups showing the hybridity and evolution of this music. That's my mom there. This accomplishment helped motivate me to relaunch Tumbao at the end of last year as a digital archive, record label, and event production platform. We've launched 3 event concepts highlighting different aspects of Afro-diasporic cultures, including our cornerstone event, La Jungla, a femme-queer tropical dance party created by me and DJ Yana. The debut event featured Maldita Vaina from the Dominican Republic and was a huge success. Upcoming projects include original scoring and sound design I did for a podcast on religion and sexuality for NPR by journalist Jessica Alvarenga. And this summer, I will release my first remix EP titled Emily the Edits Volume 1, Algo Más Allá, featuring my original remix work and some new songs. This is a dembow version of You Better Move by Lil Uzi Vert, which will be featured on the EP. Expect dancehall, reggaeton, Jersey club, Afrobeats, mambo, and other fusion sounds. Also look out for the next events I will be hosting for Calentura, La Jungla, and more. It's really loud. Feel free to reach out and link on Instagram for information about upcoming events. You can also reach out to me for bookings and listen or purchase my music on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I know I'm supposed to look at you when I'm ready. Hello, everyone. My name is Shola Cardoso. Technically, there's no H in my name, but it's there when you pronounce it because of that dot under the S. I'm a mixed media artist and a visual storyteller. My work is inspired by my stories, stories I hear, or stories I've read. This piece is titled Good Morning, and it was inspired by a short story I read titled Growing My Hair Back. It currently sits in the collection of the author who wrote that story. I use West African fabrics and symbols to tell more modern stories of intersecting identities and experiences. For example, this piece is titled Adeyinka, which means the crown surrounds this one. I use a symbol for a traditional Nigerian king, because there's only a symbol for a king, but I put it on this woman to highlight that women are royalty and also deserve to be crowned. So the symbols I use are called adire, which translates to tie-dye loosely in Yoruba. I was lucky enough to travel to Abeokuta, Nigeria, which is where my grandmother is from, and it's also one of the major producers of this fabric. The symbols are usually passed down from mother to daughter and share stories of history, folklore, and they just focus on telling their stories through symbols. So in my pieces, I use those symbols and fabrics as the backdrop of my art, and I predominantly focus on the figure. So my work is very figurative in nature. For the most part, I paint women, predominantly black women, because I am a black woman, and they're usually unclothed because why not? And occasionally, there's a man in there if it's crucial to the story. For example, Biggie Smalls was the first hip hop artist I listened to, thanks to my big brother who is watching virtually. And so he is crucial to and foundational to my story as an artist. So more recently, I feel like my artist story is shifting a little bit. The source remains the same, but the stream is kind of changing as I'm challenged with the consumption of black and brown bodies in my artwork. So I'm exploring new ways to tell my stories by removing the figure and focusing on the symbols and the fabric. So what does art by Shola look like when you remove the figure from the pieces? So this is the first piece I did. It's titled Orimi Pe, which translates to my head is correct. So the Adire artists, when they put multiple symbols within one square in their fabric, sometimes they'll put Orimi Pe in that same square. And that means I know what I'm doing, I got this, just enjoy the piece. So this is the first piece I did in my series titled Rhythm and Flow to remind myself that I know what I'm doing, I got this, and enjoy the piece. So more pieces in my, my Rhythm and Flow series are all have the figure removed from them. And as you'll see on the next slide, a couple of more pieces that's still in that same vein. But to me, these are all still African art. So I'm also challenged with the definition of what African art is. Is it because the artist is African? Is it because the subject matter is African? Or is it because it was made on the African continent? To me, this is all African art, because it's made by me, an African woman, and it's using African materials. I also believe it belongs in places that are not just African themed. So I'd like to see my art in a hotel, in an office, in a restaurant that has nothing to do with Africa, because I believe African art belongs where art is. So each of these pieces, as you can see, the fabric and the symbols have become the forefront of the piece, and I've removed the figure, but I'm still telling the same stories of intersecting identities. And so in each of my series, I like to do one piece to highlight and honor the Adire artists in Nigeria, because they inspire me so much. This piece is titled Spun Gold. I took the fabric that they use and I bunched it together, and then I wrapped the thread in gold to highlight how they use this fabric and this art to sustain themselves and provide resources for their community. So in each series I do from now on, I will honor them because they are such a huge inspiration to me, and that is the land of my grandmother. So as I continue to explore what Art by Shola looks like in this new form and different ways to express my stories, I encourage you to follow me on Instagram, Art by Shola, my website of the same name. Thank you.
My name is Sunny Mehta. My Qawwali music from South Asia centers the community. In 1990, a bomb exploded just meters from my house, eerily close to my father's office. The political situation had been tough, but this incident made sure the change was going to happen. I was 6, living in South Asia, with friends of different faiths that enriched my life. Those friends would still remain my friends, but I wouldn't be able to see them as often as I migrated to Houston soon for a safer life and, of course, better opportunities. Music had already been part of my life by then. I was learning in South Asia by some wonderful teachers. I came here, was blessed to meet some other teachers. When I went to college, I spent my time and my summers especially in South Asia, immersed in understanding poetic traditions and music. I was training, even while I was working and trying to go to college, for a career in music. In 2006, I started Riyaz Qawwali, a music ensemble that would allow me to quit my job a decade later. And my music would celebrate the many faiths and poetic traditions that once surrounded me in my childhood. This was at the University of Texas at Austin. Years later, I mustered up the courage and I released my first album, celebrating many faiths directly influenced by my childhood experiences and my ever-prevalent desire to coexist at the Asia Society in 2012. My touring across the United States had started to take a life of its own by now. I was focused on opportunities that advanced my mission of using the arts and my music to heal divides within my community and what I call my community, you all. This was my second album, and then I got a chance to present at the White House. Things were going well, so I quit my job like an idiot. And that was really hard because moving from a salary of a consultant to a full-time artist is not an easy job. I was building, sure. I was moving from music to composing and even film, sure, but it was tough. Thankfully, things began to shift. I won some grants. I received my first commission. I won a grant specifically to showcase an Urdu poet in Qawwali shunned because of his homosexuality and our desi problems with homosexuality we all know about. But this was sort of a turning point in my life. And similarly, my residency opportunities at universities deepened. I was fortunate enough to lecture at Harvard, Dartmouth, University of Chicago, universities that I could have only dreamt about when applying to college. It was when I was performing at the West Point U.S. Military Academy I got news about a commissioning by Disney+. My art is about my community. Sharing and passing this tradition on is part of that. I got seed funding for the Riyaz Academy at the end of last year, and across this year, I was granted commissions from the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, as well as Asia Society, to continue that mission. This article, The article from the beginning is what I do with my art form. I selectively hide and highlight information to build cohesion. And now, a little bit of my music. Thank you very much.
Oh my God. Oh, it's tiny, so okay. Hola a todos, this cutie pie is me, Vanessa Sanes. I'm a visual artist from Venezuela, but I like to consider myself as a pop Caribbean artist. That title is inspired by my childhood memories attached to pop culture, Latino art, Latino music, cartoon, and of course, the beauty of the Caribbean life. I would like to start my story with this question: how many times have you started over in your life? My new journey started when I immigrated from Venezuela for political reasons with my husband in December 2017. And I faced many challenges as an immigrant, such as missing my family, the language barrier, and the list goes on. But I didn't let those things stop me from achieving my goals, so I worked hard. I improved my artistic skill. I first my painting collection, inspired my Caribbean roots. I introduced myself in digital art, and I registered my art business as well. Pursuing opportunities to show my work, I was supported by the Venezuelan community in Houston. I created my first workshop for kids, drawing workshop. It was a big success. People started reaching out to me and quickly caught the attention of the local community. That same year, in 2019, I worked as an art teacher for a senior art program in partnership with Avenue CDC for at least 8 months. It was one of the best experiences in my life, and I miss them so much. And then COVID happens, remember? No. So determined I lost my job, by the way, in COVID. My sales went down, commissions went down, so I was determined to keep creating, so I recorded a mural that I painted in my home. I posted on my social media, and boom, it was a success again, and people started reaching out to me. I even started my online lessons as well. That same year, on May 2020, finding opportunities in unexpected places, I received a DM from Break Free Hip Hop School to be part of the team as an art teacher, and since then, I became my Break Free family member. Those are my kids, I love them. And then the greatest news of my life. Yes, my masterpiece, my greatest work of art. My baby Solomon, who is right there saying, "Mama, mama." Yeah, that's me. That year, I received the greatest news. That's my baby Solomon. I became a mom, and he's my inspiration. He's the blue of my painting, el azulito de mis pinturas. And despite all the struggles and the challenges of being a pregnant woman during pandemic, I used that as an inspiration to paint mural and create beautiful murals around Houston, especially the Vanessa Guillen one that is located in Westheimer Road, if you want to see it. And that was one of the most significant and important murals for me because it was part of the Netflix documentary that was released last year on November 17. And this is a picture of me and Lupe, Vanessa Guillen's sister, expressing our mutual admiration at the screening documentary. Yes. And since 2019 to 2022, I have participated in so many art shows and art exhibitions. And next year, my goal is to create my own solo show, so yay. And I have met, connected, and collaborated with wonderful artists and talented people and organizations. Last year, I collaborated with the Vision Zero Houston and the City of Houston in the creation of a coloring activity book to educate kids about traffic safety, and currently we're working on educational videos for the program as well. That's me creating one of the characters, Neil the Armadillo, my favorite character, by the way. And yeah, I mean, I'm still growing and finding opportunities to embrace my voice and show my art and help people through my art. And I want to continue doing that, especially inspire mom artists and women artists as well. And yes, last but not least, I also do cool things such as my own gift and for customers too. So you're going to follow me on Instagram. You're going to tap on the gift tab. You're going to write Colores de Vanessa, and you will find a bunch of gifts. And last but not least, so it has been a nonstop journey. Thank you, Artist Inc., for this program and all the participants for the boost that I needed as an artist in my life. It already became a special and important chapter in my life. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Hello, my name is Jean, and I'm a visual artist. My practice explores memory, identity, loss, melancholia, and recovery in the context of family history and community. My work has transformed over the past few years from straight photography to image-based work, to text, and to large-scale immersive installations. My first cohesive project began with what I knew, which was my family. They owned a motel in the middle of Louisiana, and every time I visited them, I would take photos. This work begins with my parents' struggling motel business and the difficulty they faced as immigrant small business owners in an isolated town. Then this project transitions to my family coping with my father's sudden brain cancer diagnosis and the subsequent deterioration of not only him, but our family dynamics. I questioned the idea of the alleged American dream in my family's context. I felt loss in many aspects of my past. My elementary school behind my childhood home was demolished. My school district was annexed by the city next door. My hometown was generally in decline. Since my father's death, I grew more curious about understanding my past. It can be a source of illumination, or rather, it provides us with what we think may constitute our identity. On the left is the only photo of my grandfather, who was killed during the Korean War, when my father was only a few months old. It's a tiny photo, only about an inch wide. This image is a representation, a symbol, a mystery, a place for speculation. Thinking about my relationship to this man I never knew, I Xeroxed this photo, enlarged it, physically cut it into 1,600 pieces, pasted them together, and repeated this process several times. The result was generating 4 images that show a gradual deterioration and breakdown. I'm thinking about the passage of time and the passing down of family history and oral stories that change from generation to generation. I frequently use family archival materials as the basis of my work, raising questions about the things we inherit, physical, mental, and emotional. But rather than definitive resolutions, my work focuses on the ruptures and silences produced by our past. I preserved every document, every trace of my father that I could find, and decided to use these objects in my work. I found letters that were sent between America and Korea that were beautifully stained and aged with time. I manipulated the image to erase the language I didn't understand, allowing the bleed to show through. I started writing my own text, rooting from stories that my parents used to tell. These are the backs of photos of my extended family. Rather than showing the front, I wanted to use language in order to allow the viewer to imagine the lives of the people underneath. I wrote poetry, which was collaboration between my voice, my father's writings, and my mother's translations. My installation practice originated from this text. I need to figure out a space to hold it. I thought about how a photograph is simply created from light. So I decided to use paper screens where I laser cut text or hand cut designs in order to manipulate light and shadow through. I gravitate towards ambiguous origins, thinking about gaps and knowledge and missing information. I'm interested in the fallibility of memory, fractures in history, mediations of knowledge passed down through generations, and inconclusive resolutions. This shows that our lives do not necessarily follow in a linear or progressive pattern, but instead are complexly layered and cyclical. I explore traces of loss and what gets imprinted in our minds, memory, and body. It's the things that we can almost see. I tread the line of legibility and illegibility in my work. I focus on ruptures, fragments, and reconstruction. I show how various forms of loss, from the personal to the communal, can be regenerative, serving as a connection to the past. This process allows me to understand and carry forward the memory of my family and community. My work unpacks the intersections and limitations of language and image, creating a space of reflection, meditation, and speculation. I'm representing the way lineage functions, regenerating family archival documents, and reseeing the past in order to move forward. It's not just about honoring the past, but keeping it alive. There is an urgency to preserve and learn what we can while we can. Thank you for allowing me to share my work with you. You can see more of my work on my website, and you can follow me on Instagram. So thank you to Artists Inc. And everybody. Thank you for coming.
All right, everybody, welcome back, welcome back. Take a seat, please. We'll go ahead and get started with the second half of the work shares as soon as everybody's seated. I think we have some fellows in the back, so we'll herd those cats in a minute, but go ahead and take a seat. We'll get started in a minute. All right, I believe most of everybody is back, so we'll go ahead and get started again. Thank you all for your patience with our technical difficulties earlier today. Sorry, Piero. Sorry to the people watching virtually, but thank you everybody for being patient with us and enjoying this presentation. So we'll continue with the second half.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Clausen. As an eco-artist, I'm excited to share my journey with you, a journey that starts with my appreciation of nature and how it inspires my art. Nature has a unique power that can be spiritually, physically, and mentally healing. It's a source of inspiration that allows me to create sculptures that not only capture the earth's beauty, but also encourage people to think about their relationship with the natural world. I suggest exploring natural habitats and taking a moment to observe the small details using all of your senses. Pay attention to the sounds of the wind and the wildlife. See the changes in the sunlight and feel the soil or fauna around you. Taking a deep breath and appreciating the beauty around you is good for both your health and your soul. My sculptures are like a reminder for you to do this and how these habits can be perpetually rewarding. During college, I studied ceramics and black and white film photography. I would spend the next 12 years bouncing back and forth between ceramics, film photography, and then digital photography. I am encouraged by the idea that those years did me well, because it took me that time, being an observer, to know how to become a true creator. And it took me years of creating to realize I had a voice to help preserve what doesn't. In the early 2010s, I began Light Fire Creations. Light because of the essence of photography, and fire because it's the process by which you vitrify a clay body. This is a collection in which I altered my photographs and burned them into the glaze of ceramic vessels. Of course, years later, I would long for the sculptural, textured surface, and I'd return to that style. In the late 2010s, I began the Uncoopering collection, which is a series of wall pieces from wine barrels that I purchased at local wineries and deconstructed. This series title is derived from the word cooperage, which is the art of barrel making. By repurposing barrels into art, I hope to convey a message of sustainability and the importance of reusing materials.
My art is inspired by nature, and I often use natural elements such as wood, leaves, stone, and shells found on my walks or adventures. These elements are combined with man-made materials such as glass, ceramic, acrylic, and metal to emphasize colors, textures, or patterns. I'm excited, excuse me, as in my sculptures titled Introspection and Metaperception, I place my designs into carefully defined compositions in which they offer a close look to inner spaces. I explore the contrast of material to take viewers on their own personal journey. I am excited to share a recent creation that is a tribute to two strong feminine icons. That's Mother Earth and Georgia O'Keeffe, the latter being the first female artist I connected to as a child. It was not until I was much older that I realized how strong Georgia's connection was to Mother Earth, too. My next art series, I plan to use coral pieces that were washed ashore after a storm to give them a new purpose. It's important to recognize the impact of how we treat our land and atmosphere has on our oceans. This series aims to bring attention to the fact that all aspects of the world, even those we don't usually see, are precious and need our care. It's essential for me to honor and preserve these beautiful and unique elements from nature. Once I've cut, pressed, or fastened each piece, it's hard, if not impossible, to reverse the alteration. I often think there will never be a piece like that one again. And you better not mess this up. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I hope it has inspired you to appreciate the beauty of nature and support local artists who are striving to make a difference in the world. You can see my art at jenniferclawson.com. There you can find my Instagram and email. And you may also learn about the recent conservation nonprofits my art and time are supporting.
What was that? Where are they? Where did they go? Do you see them anymore? Where are they? Good evening, friends. That's a piece that I'm working on about the huge decline in the insect and non-human species over their populations over the past 40 years. And so y'all getting a little sneak peek at that work in progress. I'm inspired, AKA Eddie Garcia, multidisciplinary artist and arts producer. And this is one of the performances that I did. Well, it's actually when I studied under Denise Chavez, awesome playwright and author, and also performed in Plaza San Quilmes. That was way back in the day. Here's some of the art productions that I've done over the years, and I'd like to give a big shout out to Robin Lewis, who was the development director over KPFT when we worked on the One World Music Jams and the different programs like bringing down Amy Goodman to do speaking engagements for the radio station. Also did a lot of work with Mecca And here's some of my photography with the banner that I did for Frontline Actions for Immigrant Rights, and also for environmental protection. And then some of my photography comparing nature to the built environment. These are some of my nature photography around Texas. And this society calls these activities arts, but in our tribal identity, it's considered just part of our lifeways. And we don't separate the arts or science or anything like that from each other. That's all part of who we are as our identity. And this is the new direction that I'm going in with my multidisciplinary arts productions. And what I'd really like to do is persuade audiences to participate in the solutions to the different human-induced activities that are happening with the mass extinction of species, as I just mentioned, and the climate issues. These are the principles that I'm informed by my tribal heritage, especially that human respect for all other human beings, and also for our natural environment. And so I'm going to do a little piece for y'all. I hope this is beneficial to those who need it. Am I handsome? Am I pretty? Am I attractive? Some might say those are petty. Though they're questions countless people of every gender ask ourselves countless times a day, trapped in the delusional matrix of movie and mass media images distorted by moguls who are insecure, bombarding us worldwide with the big lie 24/7, 365 days of the year, redefining beauty as their objectifying standard that can be measured and judged by jury. Miss America. Liberation from this injected poison turned prison in our minds is gained by realizing and accepting the truth, the fact that beauty is inherent in all of us simply because we're human. And so I am open to working with other artists, collaborating, anybody that agrees with those principles that I was talking about earlier. And I'd also like to give a big shout out to my tribal elder, Juan Mancias, and his family, and for all that they've allowed me to learn in our tribal identity. And just really happy to be here. Big thank you to, so I'm also looking just for grants and fellowships and residencies that will help me develop these multidisciplinary productions. So thank y'all. Very happy to be here.
Hello. Hi, y'all. I'm Brittany Lawback, and it's true, I can't see anybody right there. I'm ready. Content warning. I'm a photographer. I recently just moved to Houston, Texas, and I started my journey in Columbus, Ohio. And I started photography at around 17 years old. I shot my friends and my family. That's my mom. She pops back up, but I'm going to take you on a little journey through my life to show you kind of how I got to where I am right now, which is I have a great book out right now. Here, I got obsessed with fruits and vegetables. And this is in New Mexico. I got my undergrad out there. and heart-shaped tubs. I love heart-shaped tubs. But a lot of these themes you'll see pop back up. And here in Binghamton, New York, I kind of widened my circle a little bit and started photographing bodybuilders. And I tried to figure out a way to kind of connect with the place. And Rod Serling is from Binghamton, New York, who did the Twilight Zone. So I started my own little noir collection of photography. And I also started photographing men in their beds, just trying to find different ways to get into different dudes' bedrooms. And but I continued to photograph my family all along. And then I moved to Athens, Georgia, where I went and got my master's degree in photography. And again, widened the circle and started photographing strangers in hotel rooms. And these strangers would bring me other people to photograph too. And I would wander around with my camera, do a lot of street photography. I photographed women who owned snakes. I was really interested in kind of how these women represented themselves as either the temptress or possibly with some dominion over nature. I also started photographing men with pointing their guns at me, which is sometimes hard to do when you're supposed to not have them loaded, but it didn't seem as real. And now here I am in Houston, Texas. Whoop, whoop. And this is work from my book. So I started off by doing a lot of these projects, but for my book, I kind of found it more interesting to combine a lot of these themes together to kind of mimic life as it actually happens, and all of the kind of awkward moments that we have in life. A lot of the themes in this book are about embodiment and what it's like to be within a body. And there's a lot of signs all around that kind of explore our American landscape and the dreams that we have. But I find that when I combine all this work together, it's a lot more like life. And of course, I see kind of the body everywhere in the in the toilets. That was at a gas station. I couldn't believe they had 2 toilets in one stall. But, you know, you encounter random penises and pool noodles in life. And again, there's a lot of my family within this book as well. That's my dad. Shout out to my dad who's here tonight. The pineapple pops back up again in the work. But I'm really proud of this book, and it's being published by a publisher out of Atlanta, Georgia, Fall Line Press. And even though I have a publisher, you still have to fund your own book. So I am currently running a Kickstarter, and it's about midway through, and I'm trying to gather $20,000 to print this book. It's going to be printed in Istanbul. So if you have all of the same fears and crazy, chaotic string of events, awkwardness of what it is to exist, and possibly a love of heart-shaped tubs, I think you'll be really interested in this book. And it's dedicated to my late sister, who recently passed and is the reason I'm in Houston. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please support my book. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
I use Afro dance and African things to explore people, what their stories, weary or madness, and perspectives can do or bring. I go by many names and roles depending on what the work needs, but you can just call me Kemi OG. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you today. My practice is rooted in Afro dance, a series of contemporary African dance styles born out of a mix of traditional African dance, local lifestyle, and Western influences. I have a soft spot for Francophone-based Afro dance styles like this one, because I grew up falling in love with Awilo Longomba, and there was this one move that mesmerized me. We used to call it Makosa back in the day in Nigeria, even though that wasn't the real name. And I spent a really long time learning how to move in it until it clicked in my body one day. It became my secret weapon that I used to finally beat that overconfident Michael Jackson dancer that was always winning the dancing competitions that we would have at all the birthday parties while I was in primary school. When I left Nigeria for the United States, I promised myself that I wouldn't forget how to dance Makosa, and it was in trying to keep that promise to myself that started a journey of exploration and self-training in Dombolo and what would become 8 different dance styles and counting. I experiment and challenge myself with my work, pushing my physical, intellectual, and creative boundaries, and inviting the people collaborating with me to do the same. I'm always challenging how Afro dance can be performed or experienced, and how it can create impact in a life, whether it's sitting in a chair, behind the curtains, or breaking it down on stage. The creative process is like me exploring the world with new eyes, and the final piece is me trying to describe what I saw and learned, hoping it inspires others to do the same, or to just heal, or to just breathe. The process is just as important as the final work, and I'm always trying to design how that creative experience also brings value to the people creating alongside me. Lately, I've been looking at the idea of immersion and how to bring audience in closer relationship with movements and the concepts represented through immersive technologies and community research in my work. I've always appreciated this sort of universal quality of stories and how people could find a piece of themselves in one. A small part of me creates so more and more people see a part of themselves and their humanity in African culture, heritage, legacy, and ways of thinking in my work. I have 2 sides. It's not all deep and concerning. I have Afrobeats with Kemi OG. This is where I share my love of Afro dance and just with everyone I meet. It's been an honor over the past 10 years, sharing my love with so many people and giving them an opportunity to learn, have fun, and just be silly sometimes. Right now, you can see what I talked about in my work in pieces like Internal Dialogue, which was an experimental piece I created as part of my artist in residency at Dancehall Houston last year, and OG Creatives, which houses the Moments Project, a long-term, multi-phase of creative project that just explores African stories through experimental art and performance. We're currently working on our 3rd phase called Passport, which focuses on everyday African immigrant stories told creatively. I wanted this work to be born out of real stories and something designed to where Houston could fall in love with the artists, African artists in Houston, and something that made Houston dance. So stay tuned to a Moments or Passport event coming near you. And if you're interested in being a part of it, don't hesitate to reach out. I don't bite, I just dance. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Hello. Okay. Hi, my name is Julia Rossell. I'm 20 years old and I'm getting a sculpture BFA at the University of Houston, but I feel I've learned the most outside of school by participating in the community here. Aside from my personal endeavors in class, I work at Art League Houston on the weekend as the receptionist and at the Contemporary Arts Museum as a fact team member and teen council associate. This is me standing underneath a sculpture at an event that I curated. This was the very first one. In 2019, I was a junior in high school, and I had this show with my friend Sarah Perkison while my mom was out of town. And of course, you know, we invited all of our friends, which were just other high schoolers, but this was the beginning of my journey, I feel. We just covered all the walls as much as we could with both of our work. So jumping to more recently, my sophomore year of college, when I created these wire plaster and bamboo sculptures. So these are the first pieces I've made that tower over me and can stand by themselves. This was a turning point. As you can see, they are in my friend's backyard, where I hosted my first live music event, and showed these pieces in conjunction with an installation that was stretched across the stage. Natural Bond. This piece was another pivotal moment for me. I was listening to the audiobook Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, which talks about the mycelial connections that are beneath our feet, where plants use them to communicate and send each other like life-saving nutrients, and it reminded me of the webs we have amongst each other. It's made of thrifted curtains that I cut, dyed, and knotted together from a plaster and wire base. It's very versatile. Here you can see it's been shown in different contexts, like at Lawndale's Big Show in 2022, and at a tea party I had with my friend Jade Castillo. She's an herbalist and created special herbal blends for us to sip on underneath this piece at the Minnow Park. Right here, you'll see it at a house venue, and this piece is kind of bridging the gap between more casual interaction, like at the park, and in white wall art spaces like Lawndale. This was the Parking, Walking, Peeing, and Talking, which was the first art show I had curated outside of my parents' house, and it featured 15 different artists with 10 vendors. I also booked local bands to play underneath this cardboard dice sculpture. You know, basically anybody who wanted to be a part of it could. And same thing with this show, Battle of the Freest Spirit. It was 11 artists. I was keeping the art inside of the house this time, not in the garage and outdoors. And was more intentional with where I hung it. And I love having an event in a space like this because people that usually wouldn't go to like an opening or an art gallery can have a more casual encounter with art that doesn't feel as intimidating. And that's really what it's all about for me. And I also hosted this free weaving workshop within that same space, and just showed everyone how to make a loom and finish the weaving and techniques, passed out a free zine for everyone to take home. It meant a lot to me that people actually came and that they wanted to learn. Another pivotal moment in realizing the strength in the community that exists here. And thinking outside of those communities, I managed this band, Vivaldi's Green Jacket, and I just planned a tour for them. They went to New Orleans, Denton, Albuquerque, El Paso, San Antonio, Austin. This has kind of taken up a lot of my life as well, and I consider it to be a part of my art, you know, the art of social sculpture, but now not just in Houston, but branching outside of it as well. So just applying, you know, the skills that you use as an artist to manage your own work and your own career to others. So here's my contact, here's me. And please contact me for any of these things. and just in general. And thank you for being here and hearing me out.
Yes. Howdy, hey. How's everyone feeling? Great, great. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Bowie. I'm an emerging editorial, documentary, and portrait photographer here in Houston, Texas. I take compelling portraits of people that narrate their lives and also their personality. I'm very interested in the themes about community, identity, culture, and this idea of home. And yeah, this is my journey through photography. These are some of my earlier works, but my journey began in high school, taking photographs for my friend's prom, graduation, and for my family during ceremonies and gatherings. And during college, I got a full ride scholarship to go to Colby College in Maine, so far away from Houston, and the cold definitely struck me really hard with winter depression. But at Colby College, I got to hone in my technical skills in lighting, color, posing, working with models, and a crew. I think that was one of my goals back then, was to be a fashion photographer, and kind of working with a large crew with a huge production set, making six figures one day. But this is one of my favorite photographs back then that I'm titling Flower Boy, which kind of works around the concept of masculinity with femininity. And it was such a great production, working with a stylist, makeup artist, and models and assistants. And taking a deeper dive into my portrait work, I began kind of questioning my queer identity, what it meant to be queer, and kind of wanting to connect with that queer community at my college in Central Maine. I begun this project called Queer Journey, which focuses at the queer community at my college and kind of thinking back to the history of my queerness, how I didn't really have a role model growing up, and kind of reaching out to this community to support me, but also to support them. So in this collaborative work, really giving agency to my subjects in terms of how do they want to pose to the camera, their narrative that they want to say. So through this series, really learning about their narrative, what their journey was like, their struggles, their upbringings, and the joys of being queer and the fluidity of it. And today, I am continuing to observe my queer identity and what that means in a Houston context. So I'm starting like a queer journey project focusing on the queer Asian community here in Houston. So if anyone is interested or know anyone, my DMs are open. So feel free to send me a message with interest. Yeah. And you can buy this book on Blurb if you're interested too. And now is a personal project of mine that begun during COVID. As I was in college, I got sent home, and when the pandemic started, I begun worrying about my parents for their health and safety with the rise of Asian hate crimes. I've begun this project titled "I Love You, I Miss You, Have a Good Day," which is a short prayer and saying I would tell my mom before she left for work, and really focusing on my parents and them being here with me today before it's too late. My father is a handyman. He doesn't say much, but his actions speak very loudly. My mother is a small business owner. She owns a small hair salon, but very charismatic like me. And just really paying tribute to their time with me and a memory, like a family album. And kind of this project continues on today in color, really focusing on what does family mean to me, what does a home mean to me, who is a part of your family, blood or not, what is in a home, what memorabilia is in there, familiar scenes that mean a lot to me, and yeah. And then through this project, kind of really, cherishing my time with them and understanding to respect your elders and also listen to their stories because there's so much history around it. And some of my other work have also been publicized in local publications. I work in the photojournalism world with the Houston Chronicle, Texas Tribune, Houston Landing, subscribe to them, and the Wall Street Journal, photographing local Houston stories and communities. And let's see, in Houston, please check out my exhibit with Free Juice, a photography mentorship program at Post Houston, now until the end of June. If you happen to be in Seattle, check out Have You Eaten, which is a celebration of work by AAPI artists. And yeah, follow me on Instagram and see where I go next. Thank you.
This is why Brittany and me get along. Okay. Hi, my name is Catalina Calderon, and I am the owner and founder of Smash and Pull Piñata. We are a full fabrication studio that specializes in piñatas and large-scale piñatas and props for the event industry, mostly fiberglass and foam sculptures and a lot of paper mache. This is the spring 2023 collection that I did, which was a very bad thing. I lost $15,000 on it, and I'll circle back and tell you about that later. I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia. I'm a third-generation sculptor. I've been working professionally as an artist for 20 years. And that's a fun story, too. My artist career actually started at a strip club, and I'll tell you that at the after party. Like I said, I'm the founder and lead sculptor of my organization. Could you pause that for a second? Is it possible? No, okay. My formal training is in anaplastology. I'm an anaplastologist. My family came here from Colombia to work at MD Anderson, making maxillofacial prosthetics. They did not consider themselves sculptors. They considered themselves medical professionals. And so it was almost assaulting to them that I said I was a sculptor. I left that. I didn't think it was creative enough. I started making piñatas. To the left is a really popular donkey that I make that you can see on the new TV show Grease, The Rise of the Pink Ladies. And the discount code is link in bio for Paramount Plus. And on the right is Dwight Schrute from The Office. Here is a current piece that was commissioned for a horror film event from the cult classic film Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which was like from the 80s. And so this is made out of paper mache and acrylics. And an average piece like this can be like about 40 hours over a longer period of time because paper mache is very time consuming. You have to let it dry before you can continue on. This is a collection of 23 birds that was an installation for the Alley Theater. It was in efforts to invite the Latin community out to the Alley Theater because that represented the 23 Latin American countries. This has been the most exhausting project that I've done recently, and what had me missing class recently as well. It's a 50-foot megalodon shark that will be part of an exhibit in the Houston Natural Museum of Science coming up, and it weighs over a ton. Its infrastructure is made out of metal and then foam, fiberglass, and we've been sanding our little hearts out. That exhibition will open on the 26th of this month. Looking forward, I'm actually going back to my roots. One thing that I missed in that one slide was that I'm a mom of 5. My oldest is 26 and my youngest is 5. My youngest is 3. And he will be starting pre-K this year. And I told myself, this is it. Every single thing that I've done in the last 20 years has literally been with a baby on my hip. And I'd like to work at a different pace now. I'm tired of 16-hour days. I've solely worked on commission for the last 20 years. And this class has definitely been a pivotal moment to kind of take back a bit of my power and say, no, I'm going to have reasonable hours. I'm going to work on my own projects on my own terms. Whether that sells or not, I don't know. But that's what I will be doing. And I'm really excited about that. I'm going back to anaplastology. I left it thinking it was not creative enough, and maybe it wasn't the time at that time. The ideology during that time was to blend in. If you needed a prosthetic, a nose or ear, it was to blend in, and I didn't think that was creative enough. Now I am searching for a trademarkable term. Basically, I call it a weekend hand, and it's going to be a niche for children that they may need a prosthetic hand or arm, and it doesn't have to be a humanoid hand. It can be an Iron Man hand. It can be the hand that looks like an animal. It can be a hand that looks like an alien. And so it'll be a prosthetic that is wearable for children that embraces their individuality and doesn't have to necessarily blend in. So that's my moving forward project. And for now, you can still find me at Smash and Pool Piñata. And thank you.
Breakdance. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, my name is, follow me on Instagram. That was quick, see y'all later. Okay. No. Yes, I dance. I call it creative I don't even need this mic. Wait. How y'all doing? I call it creative movement therapy, but the simple term I call it is dance. So, yeah. Baby Shark. Oh, before I even start, I want to give a big shout out actually to young Chris because he's the one that got me into this program. He sent it to a whole bunch of people on Instagram, and a bunch of dancers don't really think about themselves as businesses in a way. So he sent it and was like, you need to come. And I said, okay, I'm going to go. So then I went and I was like, I really need this. I want to think of myself more as a business and a business aspect. So then I applied for the program and I got in. And then in 2016, I began my dance journey at YA. YA Houston, that's me mugging. But it started my dance journey and to being a professional dancer. And March 5th, 2017, I won my first dance battle. This is a different dance battle, but that's okay. I won 7 dance battles in a row, and that pushed me and drive me to really think of this as a profession. Along the way, I met my mentor, Adrian Flores, or DJ Flo, and he told me to think of my dancing more internationally. So then I got invited to Guadalajara, Mexico, to be part of a All Styles battle, which was super, super cool. I made it to the finals. Oh, along the way, I got to judge World of Dance All Styles battles, which was super, super cool because I always wanted to be a part of that. And in the next year, I went back and won the battles in Guadalajara, Mexico. So that was a big improvement for me. 2018, I won a battle called Just Debut and was representing the U.S. as a hip-hop dancer. They flew us out to Paris, and I got to meet so many people that I look up to in general in the dance industry. Between 2019 and 2021, I traveled, I danced, I battled, I taught various classes around the U.S., and just connected with so many beautiful people, which made me really happy. There's a battle I won in Cancun. The year before I made it to the finals, the next year I won. And then this is a battle I won with my sister. It means a lot to me. It was our first battle together. She in the crowd. What's up, girl? This is a flyer that I taught at Rush Dance Studio. Teaching freestyle dance classes, which I actually do at Soul Real Dance Studio every other Wednesday. So contact me if you want to practice your dance skills. Okay, in 2021, I got invited by Red Bull to go to Red Bull BC1, and I won the Break the House dance battles. September, I got invited back out to Paris to represent the U.S. as a hip-hop dancer in a battle called Battle Bad, and that's me dancing. I love it so much. Look at my face. And oh, I got invited to a Red Bull Dance Your Style, which I ended up winning. This was the Atlanta qualifier, and that was a big thing to me because I always wanted to be a part of it. So when I came back to Houston, it was like, I want to throw my own dance battle. So I went in cooperation with All Access Art Show and started throwing dance battles. Then the next year, I got invited for the, what was it, Tampa, and I won again. So it was 2 years in a row I won the qualifier and got featured on People's Magazine. That was super, super cool. Oh, for International Dance Day, I got featured on KHOU 11 for the dance with Charmaine Chow. Got flown out this last year to Sweden and taught workshops in one hip-hop dance category. This is Dance Your Style. It means a lot to me because I was the first solo performer in Houston to be a part of that, so I got to perform from battling and got invited back out to, what was it? Memphis, and made top 8 for Red Bull Dance Your Style. This is Tribal Grounds. It's a local battle, and I won 2 years in a row. So I didn't even need these mugs. So mainly, I'm finna dance, but you can follow me. I'm gonna take my shoes off. Thank you. Follow me on Instagram.
My name is Yvette Roman. I am an experimental vocalist and a community artist. I was trained as a in classical music, but I found that I needed to express my Caribbean upbringing in my composition, so I started to redefine what music was for me. In the 80s, I moved to New York City first, and I started working in fundraisings during the civil wars of Nicaragua and El Salvador, and then I moved to California, and I became part of the performance art movement of California. In the 90s, I moved back to Puerto Rico, and I became part of the Performeros movement. And political cabaret shows was very important at that time. I created two pieces of work in Puerto Rico that were the Voices of Enchantment, which was a 12-piece concert with chamber orchestra, and a cabaret show that was every Wednesday at the New Yorican Cafe in San Juan, not the one in New York. um, there's supposed to be the the part of the same video there. The video that you looked at the beginning is the symphony for guitar, and the symphony for guitar is about is the three movements that speak about simultaneous topics at the same time. It is not only my interpretation of what a symphony is, it is a storytelling of surviving violence, machismo, and it's also comedy, it's also my body as the guitar, and also the guitar was never played, that was what the funny part was about. And at the end, the woman becomes the guitar. This is my work in Houston, Texas. I really relocated from Puerto Rico to Houston in 2005. And then I became a collaborator with the Nameless Sound organization. And I had the opportunity to work with many local and international freestyle improvisers. And then the most recent project that I have is Requiem, and Requiem is a lab-based project that is with the theme. It talks about the theme of loss and mourning. The first Requiem was with a community in Puerto Rico that was wanted to make an homage to the people from the LGBT community that were killed in hate crimes. Then in Houston, I worked with the collective of the Puerto Ricans in Houston, and they wanted to talk about the loss of coming from Puerto Rico to Houston, and all the loss that they had during the Hurricane Maria, and then the COVID pandemic. In the Requiem experience, I realized how important it is to talk about trauma in a very safe place that people don't feel judged. And I am very passionate about this new project that I have right now. So gracias for listening, and thank you very much to Fresh Arts and the program Artists Inc. And thank you to my peers in the Orange group for your courage. And if you want to know about my work, you just have to get that QR. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Hi, I'm Shannon Gray Williams. I'm a makeup artist and a mixed media artist. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland in 1968. I moved to Houston in July 2021 after 26 years in New York City. Houston is great, except for the drivers, but the best surprise has been finding a thriving community with amazing people. At age 28, I moved to New York City seeking fame, fortune, and most importantly, fun. New York City became my playground as well as the backdrop to my work. I jumped in with both feet and was lucky to find like-minded people who wanted to push boundaries and create beautiful images. I just remembered that. I started assisting some of the major makeup artists at the time. This opened the doors to my own jobs. I eventually became the key makeup artist for my own fashion shows, and at one point I had 5 national TV commercials running. My clients included DKNY, Levi's, and celebrities like U2 and Megan Fox.
The human body is my canvas, yet I never thought of myself as an artist. Painting faces is an education in color, texture, and light. I love figuring out how to apply and move pigment on the skin. And now I do the same with canvas. I can now see clearly how this journey has shaped how I create my artwork. I love shooting on location, and the world opened up to me. I have done makeup on mountains in New Zealand, valleys in Hawaii, as well as Brazil, South Africa, and India. Often the makeup artist gets set up in the bathroom, but I do feel a bad day working by a urinal is still better than a great day working in an office. COVID hit New York City hard. It was a year before my clients started shooting again. I had never had that much free time before, and I was really at a loss to what to do with myself. One day I looked at all the junk mail in my mailbox and decided to start collaging with them. I discovered the joy of not having to make conversation with my canvas. I started playing with different materials like acrylics, tissue paper, watercolor paper, and mixing makeup into my work. I realized I couldn't wait until I had the perfect space or setup. You can always make excuses as to why you aren't creating. And if you are waiting till everything is perfect, you'll be waiting forever, and then you have nothing. This piece is called Night Flight. The base color is silver acrylic. The next layer is tissue paper that I laid down with a mixture of glue and water. The tissue paper bleeds and creates a softness. This layering process takes time, and the effect changes as the canvas dries. I later went in with loose pigments with alcohol to add some more depth. This is called Velvet. My artwork is like my makeup, and it's really about creating beauty and making things that are pleasing to the eye. The base is acrylics and tissue paper. To create the highlights, I used gold and bronze alcohol ink, and then I crushed hot pink blush and mixed it with alcohol to make the pinks more intense. This is called Accidental Blues. This was several layers of tissue paper over a base of acrylic. It was sort of a happy accident when I was trying to move the alcohol ink more, so I poured rubbing alcohol directly on the piece. I love the way it bled together, softened, and the blues revealed themselves. Destiny Journey is a reoccurring image that I explored through several pieces. There were some psychedelics involved. I wanted to create the feeling that I experienced in my journey, that you're entering into a brighter space via a portal in nature. It feels very jungle to me. I played with crushing a highlighter and rubbing alcohol and used a mini spray bottle to deposit the color. Dream Journey is the second and larger piece that was inspired by my dream. I created a lot of texture in the base, layering multiple shades of metallic acrylic. Again, I was really trying to create a portal into a brighter, lighter dimension. I wanted it to make it feel like you were traveling from the depths of night into a lavender sunrise. This is titled Crush. I wanted to break away from the darker tones that have been predominant in my work, so Crush became an exploration in a warmer, brighter palette. The base is entirely gold metallic, and then I used a palette knife and red and pink acrylic paint to break it up. Hot pink and yellow tissue paper was laid on top, and some hot pink lipstick made it in. Moons is a base of silver acrylic, and then I layered circular pieces of watercolor paper that I had painted with metallic alcohol inks. I love how it feels chaotic and unorganized, and the shapes and colors. And I like how the watercolor paper creates a subtle three-dimensional feel. So this is me, Shannon Gray Williams. I'm leading a dual artist life, which makes my mother very disappointed. But it's been a great journey and a lot of fun, and so I'm open to any collaboration, whether it be with makeup, painting, anything. This is how you can find me. I'm the only Shannon Gray Williams in the universe, so it's really easy to find. And it has been such an honor and a joy to work with this bunch of people. So much talent in this room, the facilitators, everybody. It has just been, it makes me want to cry. So I won't. I'm going to go drink now.
Let me be the first to congratulate you all on completing the program. Welcome to the alumni community. All right, as we close out, there's a couple things that we want to tell you, but first, we want to share a story that Mid-America shares at the end of every program, so I'm going to invite one of our facilitators, Epi Chad, to tell the story, Pushing the Flywheel.
McCall people. Before we go through this little story journey together, one more round of applause for the amazing cohort. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. Picture a huge, heavy flywheel. It's massive, a metal disc mounted on an axle. It weighs 25 tons. That flywheel is your career. Your job is to get that flywheel to move as fast as possible because momentum, mass times velocity, is what generates results over time. To get it moving, you make a tremendous effort. You push with all your might, and finally you get the flywheel to inch forward. After 2 or 3 days of sustained effort, you get the flywheel to complete one entire turn. You keep pushing, and the flywheel begins to move just a bit faster. It takes a lot of work, but at last the flywheel makes a second rotation. You keep pushing steadily, and it makes 3 turns, 4 turns, 5, 6. With every turn, it's moving faster. And then at some point, and you can't say exactly when, you break through. The momentum of the heavy wheel kicks in your favor. It spins faster and faster with its own weight propelling it. You aren't pushing any harder, but the flywheel is accelerating, its momentum building, and its speed increasing. This is the flywheel effect, and this will happen if you put your shoulder to the wheel.
Thank you, Epi. Now, of course, we got to plug ourselves. Stay connected with Fresh Arts. I'm talking to the fellows. Now that you've graduated from the program, stay connected with us. And to the family and friends that are here in person and virtually, stay connected with us as well. Fresh Arts, as mentioned earlier, provides a lot of professional development and resource sharing opportunities. Obviously, you know about Artists Inc. now, but we have other programs like our space-taking artist residency and our fiscal sponsorship program, which are amazing opportunities to take advantage of. Look at our website to learn more. But we also have an opportunity board where we post and repost opportunities around Houston, downloadable toolkits if you want to work on something like building a budget or updating your resume. We also have newsletters once a month that shares opportunities happening that month, and then weekly about events happening around the city of Houston. So subscribe, please. Good stuff in there, golden nuggets. And as mentioned earlier, you can become a member. But if I had to push 3 things, 1, become a member. That's how you can support us directly and impactfully. It supports this program, it supports the other programs that we do, and it also helps pay for our small but mighty team. Additionally, I want to promote the Arts District Houston got nominated for USA Today's Best Arts Districts. So voting's happening right now. So if you scan the QR code that was in the lobby, there's a button to vote for us. So you can vote once a day, every day, up until June 11th, I believe. So June 12th. We want to be number 1. We're currently at number 7, which is not bad, but we could be better. So definitely vote for us. Fresh Arts is the managing partner of Arts District Houston, which is one of 7 cultural districts in Houston. I won't go into it. Come to the after party if you want to learn more. But also we have, outside of our programs, we have individual workshops and peer labs, and we actually have a workshop next week. So if you're wanting to learn how to prep your work for artist calls, come with us with one of our Artists Inc. alums, Monica Melgar. But with that, thank you for coming. Thank you for attending. Fellows, thank you for trusting us for the past 8, 9, 10 weeks. Everybody virtually, thank you for being here virtually and in spirit. Again, if you want to join us for the after party, we'll be at Holman Draft Hall, literally down the block, walking distance if you don't want to move your car. There's also cake, so please eat some cake. But with that, thank you, thank you, thank you. Stay connected with Fresh Arts, and have a good evening. All right, good night. Group photo, fellows, group photo. In front of the screen. John, can you go to the first slide of the presentation. See, you did so good. And that freestyle? Fellows to the front, please. Fellows to the front. Hilarious. Hilarious, Chris. Epi, come on. No. No. All right. Let's do a head count.
Hello, if you're in the restroom, come grab a.
Chris, come back. He's here. Chris, come back. Chris, come back. Okay. Fellows and facilitators, please grab your belongings from the dressing room. Fellows and Fellows and facilitators, please get your belongings from the dressing room. Thank you. Fellows and facilitators, for the champagne toast. Oh, where? I'm going to let you do it. I'm going to let you do it. Oh. I'm not going to say that on the mic. I'm not going to say that.